Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday segment of Divine Femininity United. I am your girl, Dr. Bianca Missy Lee, and we are here for yet another two-chapter reading of this amazing book, The Shack. This book has been amazing, man. This thing has been so transformative. It really has garnered discussions and provoked further thought and emotion and alignment and application for real. As Mack is learning through this journey here, I myself have learned, and that's why I love our collectives because I love how okay, so the way that I structured this platform, it was given to me and I formatted it exactly how I heard to format it, okay? And so I'm glad, man. Obedience is a real thing, you all. Really when you hear, just simply do, right? Because it pays off. It pays off. It really does to hear and then do exactly how you heard it, right? So I'm glad that I heard to do a chapter or two, if time permits, each session that we're in, so that because it's not about a race. This has never been about a race. It's always been about the information applied, and the inner knowing and connection that it makes when we hear this information when we it's always been about expanding our knowing, expanding our insights, our understanding, our understanding. It's always been about that, never about anything else. And I was instructed to give it to us, not just you all, us, because I'm reading as I go along as well. I do not ever read ahead of you all, right? So I'm getting it as you're getting it. And so give it like disperse it in bite-sized pieces so that we can take away, walk away from this particular portion and continue to expand on it and expound on it and dissect it and have conversations around it, right? So that when we get to the next session, we're ready for more, for another portion. That's what it is. It's really just eating a meal, one portion at a time, and not just gouging on it. You know what I mean? Not just stuffing your face with it, but no, savoring every bite. That's what it is. And I'm so glad that's what we're doing. Okay. And I thank you all for all of you all who are on this journey with us. We're airing live on Clubhouse, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, all of the beautiful platforms. And I'm grateful to have us on those platforms. Also, too, I hope you all had an amazing holiday. I hope you all enjoyed your Thanksgiving with your friends and family. I certainly have and still am. I am currently in the state of Tennessee, and I will not be returning to Georgia until end of this week, probably the weekend coming. So yeah, and I'm enjoying it. So that is where I'm currently airing live from Tennessee. And so it's been amazing. It's been fun. I've seen family that I had not seen in a while, and spending time with family right now. It's the girls' time. We had the testosterone involved. Now it's just the girls. It's my mother and her daughters. Okay, so which is a good time. It's necessary. It is very much so necessary, and we're grateful for it. Okay, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into our reading for today. It is chapters 14 and 15. Chapter 14 is verbs and other freedoms. Chapter 15 is a festival of friends. At any point, if you have anything that you want to share, you want to add to the conversation, or an insight that you have gleaned from the conversation, feel free to use the chat, use the comment section. That is exactly what it's there for. Okay. And if you do not have the book and you would like to have your own free copy, ebook copy of this book, then we'll get to that and tell you exactly how you can obtain your own copy at the end of the segment. Okay. So in the meantime, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the reading of The Shack, written by William P. Young, as told to him by Mackenzie Allen Philips, which is our main character here, okay? Yes, the story is based on true events as told to William. Mackenzie is not, he's called Mack in the book, but he is not the writer, right? And so that's not really a strength of his. And it is a strength of William Young's. So Mack recanted the story. Oh, not recanted, but he recollected the story and told it to William, and William wrote it for him, okay? So, chapter 14, verbs and other freedoms. There's a quote here by Buckminster Fuller, and it states, God is a verb. God is a verb. I know that's right. Max stepped outside into the mid afternoon sun. He felt an odd mixture of being wrung out like a rag and yet exhilaratingly alive. What an incredible day this had been, and it was barely half over. For a moment he stood undecided before wandering down to the lake. When he saw the canoes tied up to the dock, he knew it would probably forever be bittersweet. But the thought of taking one out on the lake energized him for the first time in years. Untying the last one at the end of the dock, he gingerly slid into it and began paddling toward the other side. For the next couple of hours, he circled the lake, exploring its nooks and crannies. He found two rivers and a couple of creeks that either fed from above or emptied down toward the lower basins. And he discovered a perfect spot to drift and watch the waterfall. Alpine flowers blossomed everywhere, adding splashes of color to the landscape. This was the most calm and consistent sense of peace that Mac had felt in ages, if ever. He even sang a few songs, a couple of old hymns and a couple of old folk songs, just because he wanted to. Singing was also something he had not done in a long time. Reaching back into the distant past, he began to voice the silly little song he used to sing to Kate. Katie, beautiful Katie, you're the only one that I adore. He shook his head as he thought about his daughter. So tough, but so fragile. He wondered how he might find a way to reach her heart. He was no longer surprised how easily tears could come to his eyes. At one point, he turned to watch eddies and whirls made by the oar blade and stern, and when he turned back, Sarayu was sitting in the prow, looking at him. Her sudden presence made him jump. Geesh, he explained. You startled me. I'm sorry, Mackenzie, she apologized, but supper is almost ready, and it is time to invite you to make your way back to the shack. Have you been with me the entire time? Inquired Mac, a little ramped from the adrenaline rush. Of course, I'm always with you. Then how come I didn't know it? Asked Mac. Lately, I've been able to tell when you're around. For you to know or not, she explained, has nothing at all to do with whether I am actually here or not. I'm always with you. Sometimes I want you to be aware in a special way, more intentional. Mac nodded that he understood and turned the canoe toward the distant shore and the shack. He now distinctly felt her presence in the tingle down his spine. They both smiled simultaneously. Will I always be able to see you or hear you like I do now, even if I'm back home? Sarah, you smiled. Mackenzie, you can always talk to me, and I will always be with you, whether you sense my presence or not. I know that now, but how will I hear you? You will learn to hear my thoughts in yours, Mackenzie, she reassured him. Will it be clear? What if I confuse you with another voice? What if I make mistakes? Sarah, you laughed. The sound like tumbling water, only set to music. Of course, you will make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But you will begin to better recognize my voice as we continue to grow our relationship. I don't want to make mistakes, Matt grunted. Oh, Mackenzie, responded Sarah, you. Mistakes are a part of life, and Papa works his purpose in them too. She was amused, and Matt couldn't help but grin back. He could see her point well enough. This is so different from everything I've known, Sarayu. Don't get me wrong. I love what you all have given me this weekend, but I have no idea how I go back to my life. Somehow it seemed easier to live with God when I thought of him as the demanding taskmaster, or even to cope with the loneliness of the great sadness. You think so? She asked. Really? At least then I seemed to have things under control. Seemed is the right word. What did it get you? The great sadness and more pain than you could bear? Pain that spilled over even on those you care for the most? According to Papa, that's because I'm scared of emotion, he disclosed. Sorry, you laughed out loud. I thought that little interchange was hilarious. I'm afraid of emotions, Mack admitted, a bit perturbed that he seemed to make light of it, that she seemed to make light of it. I don't like how they feel. I've hurt others with them, and I can't trust them at all. Did you create all of them or only the good ones? Mackenzie, Sarah, you seemed to rise up into the air. He still had a difficult time looking right at her. But with the late afternoon sun reflecting off the water, it was even worse. Emotions are the colors of the soul. They are spectacular and incredible. When you don't feel, the world becomes dull and colorless. Just think how the great sadness reduced the range of color in your life down to monotones and flat grays and blacks. So help me understand them, pleaded Mac. Not much to understand, actually. They just are. They are neither bad nor good. They just exist. Here's something that will help you sort this out in your mind, Mackenzie. Paradigms power perception, and perceptions power emotions. Most emotions are responses to perceptions, what you think is true about a given situation. If your perception is false, then your emotional response to it will be false too. So check your perceptions. And beyond that, check the truthfulness of your paradigms, what you believe. Just because you believe something firmly doesn't make it true. Be willing to re examine what you believe. The more you live in the truth, the more your emotions will help you see clearly. But even then, you don't want to trust them more than me. Mac allowed his oar to turn in his hands as he let it play in the water's movements. It feels like living out of relationship, trusting and talking to you is a bit more complicated than just following rules. What rules are those, Mackenzie? All the things the scriptures tell us we should do. Okay, she said with some hesitation. And what might those be? He answered sarcastically, about doing good things and avoiding evil, being kind to the poor, reading your Bible, praying and going to church, things like that. I see. And how's that working for you? He laughed. Well, I've never done it very well. I have moments that aren't too bad, but there's always something I'm struggling with or feeling guilty about. I just figured I needed to try harder, but I find it difficult to sustain that motivation. Mackenzie, she chided, her words flowing with affection. The Bible doesn't teach you to follow rules. It is a picture of Jesus. While words may tell you about what God is like and even what he may want from you, you cannot do any of it on your own. Life is living, life and living is in him and in no other. My goodness, you didn't think you could live the righteousness of God on your own, did you? Well, I thought so, sorta, he said sheepishly. But you gotta admit, rules and principles are simpler than relationships. It is true that relationships are a whole lot messier than rules, but rules will never give you answers to the deep questions of the heart, and they will never love you. Dipping his hands in the water, he played, watching the pattern his movements made. I'm realizing how few answers I have to anything. You know, you've turned me upside down and inside out or something. Mackenzie, religion is about having the right answers, and some of their answers are right. But I am about the process that takes you to the living answers. And once you get to Him, He will change you from the inside. There are a lot of smart people who are able to say a lot of right things from their brain, because they have been told what the right answers are. They don't know me at all. So, really, how can their answers be right even if they are right? If you understand my drift. She smiled at her pun. So, even though they might be right, they are still wrong. I understand what you're saying. I did that for years after seminary. I had the right answer sometimes, but I didn't know you. This weekend, sharing life with you has been far more illuminating than any of those answers. They continue to move lazily with the current. So, will I see you again? He asked hesitantly. Of course. You might see me in a piece of art, or music, or silence, or through people, or in creation, or in your joy and sorrow. My ability to communicate is limitless, living and transforming, and it will always be tuned to Papa's goodness and love. And you will hear and see me in the Bible in fresh ways. Just don't look for rules and principles. Look for relationship, a way of coming to be with us. It still won't be the same as having you sit in the boat of my boat. No, it will be far better than you've not yet known, Mackenzie. And when you finally sleep in this world, we'll have an eternity together, face to face. And then she was gone. Although he knew that she was not really. So please help me live in the truth, he said out loud. Maybe that counts as prayer, he wondered. When Mack entered the cabin, he saw that Jesus and Sarah Yu were already there and seated around the table. Papa was busy as usual, bringing platters of wonderful smelling dishes. Again, only a few that Mac recognized, and even those he had to look twice and make sure they were something he was familiar with. Conspicuously absent were any greens. He headed for the bathroom to clean up, and when he returned, the other three had already begun to eat. He pulled up the fourth chair and sat down. You don't really have to eat, do you? He asked as he began to ladle something into his bowl that resembled a thin seafood soup with squid and fish and other more ambiguous delicacies. We don't have to do anything, Papa stated rather strongly. Then why do you eat? Mac inquired. To be with you, honey. You need to eat, so what better excuse to be together? Anyway, we all like to cook, added Jesus, and I enjoy food a lot. Nothing like a shamai, ugali, nipla, or kori banaje to make your taste buds happy. Follow that with some sticky toffee pudding or tiramisu and hot tea. Yum. It doesn't get any better than that. Everyone laughed and then busily resumed passing platters and helping themselves. As Mac ate, he listened to the banter between the three. They talked and laughed like old friends who knew one another intimately. As he thought about it, that was assuredly more true for his host than anyone inside or outside creation. He was envious of that carefree but respectful conversation and wondered what it would take to share that with Nan and maybe even with some friends. Again, Mac was struck by the wonder and sheer absurdity of the moment. His mind wandered through the incredible conversations that had already involved him during the previous 24 hours. Wow, he had only been there one day? And what was he supposed to do with all this when he got back home? He knew that he would tell Nan everything. She might not believe him, and not that he would blame her. He probably wouldn't believe any of it either. As his mind picked up speed, he felt himself withdrawing from the others. None of this could be real. He closed his eyes and tried to shut out the exchanges going on around him. Suddenly, it was dead silent. He slowly opened one eye, half expecting to be waking up at home. Instead, Papa, Jesus, and Sarah Yu were all staring at him with silly grins plastered to their faces. He didn't even try to explain himself. He knew that they knew. Instead, he pointed to one of the dishes and asked, "Could I try some of that?" The interactions resumed, and this time he listened. But again, he felt himself withdrawing. To counteract it, he decided to ask a question. Why do you love humans? Why do you love us humans? I suppose I, as he spoke, he realized he hadn't formed his question very well. I guess what I want to ask is, why do you love me when I have nothing to offer you? If you think about it, Mac, Jesus answered, it should be very freeing to know that you can offer us nothing, at least not anything that can add or take away from who we are. That should alleviate any pressure to perform. Ooh, that's good. And do you love your own children more when they perform well? Papa added. No, I see your point, Mac paused. But I do feel more fulfilled because they are in my life. Do you? No, Papa said. We are already fully fulfilled within our own self. You are designed to be in community as well, made as you are in our very image. So for you to feel that way about your children or anything that adds to you is perfectly natural and right. Keep in mind, Mackenzie, that I am not a human being, not in my very nature, despite how we have chosen to be with you this weekend. I am truly human in Jesus, but I am truly human in Jesus, but I am totally separate I am a totally separate other in my nature. Do you know? Of course you do, Max said apologetically, that I can only follow that line of thought so far, and then I get lost and my brain turns to mush. I understand, acknowledged Papa. You cannot see in your mind's eye something that you cannot experience. Mac thought about that for a moment. I guess so. Whatever. See, mush. When the others stopped laughing, Mac continued. You know how truly grateful I am for everything, but you've dumped a whole lot in my lap this weekend. What do I do when I get back? What do you expect of me now? Jesus and Papa both turned to Sarayu, who had a fork full of something halfway in her mouth. She slowly pulled it down onto her plate and then answered Mac's confused look. Mac, she began, you must forgive these two. Humans have a tendency to restructure language according to their independence and need to perform. So when I hear language abused in favor of rules over sharing life with us, it is difficult for me to remain silent. As it must, added Papa. So what exactly did I say? Asked Mac, now quite curious. Mac, go ahead and finish your bite. We can talk as you eat. Mac realized that he too had a fork halfway in his mouth. He gratefully took the bite as Sarayu began to speak. As she did, she seemed to lift off her chair and shimmer with a dance of subtle hues and shades, and the room was faintly filled with an array of aromas, incense like and heady. Let me answer that by asking you a question. Why do you think we came up with the Ten Commandments? Mac again had his fork halfway in his mouth, but took the bite away while he thought of how to answer Sarayu. I suppose at least I have been taught that it's a set of rules that you expected humans to obey in order to live righteously in your good graces. If that were true, which it is not, Sarah, you countered, then how many do you think lived righteously enough to enter our good graces? Not very many, if people are like me, Mac observed. Actually, only one succeeded: Jesus. He not only obeyed the letter of the law, but fulfilled the spirit of it completely. But understand this, Mackenzie. To do that, he had to rest fully and dependently upon me. Then why did you give us those commandments? Asked Mac. Actually, we wanted you to give up trying to be righteous on your own. It was a mirror to reveal just how filthy your face gets when you live independently. But as I'm sure you know, there are many, responded Mac, who think they are made righteous by following the rules. But can you clean your face with the same mirror that shows you how dirty you are? Hmm. There is no mercy or grace in rules, not even for one mistake. That's why Jesus fulfilled all of it for you, so that it no longer has jurisdiction over you. And the law that was given to us once contained impossible demands, thou shalt not, actually becomes a promise we fulfill in you. She was on a roll now, her countenance billowing and moving. But keep in mind that if you live your life alone and independently, the promise is empty. Jesus laid the demand of the law to rest. It no longer has any power to accuse or command. Jesus is both the promise and its fulfillment. Are you saying I don't have to follow rules? Mac had now completely stopped eating and was concentrating on the conversation. Yes, in Jesus, you are not under any law. All things are lawful. You can't be serious. You're messing with me again, moaned Mac. Child, interrupted Papa, you ain't heard nothing yet. Mackenzie, Sarah, you continue. Those who are afraid of freedom are those who cannot trust us to live in them. Trying to keep the law is actually a declaration of independence, a way of keeping control. Is that why we like the law so much? To give us some control? Asked Mac. It is much worse than that, resumed Sarayu. It grants you the power to judge others and feel superior to them. You believe you are living in a higher standard than those you judge, enforcing rules, especially in its more subtle expressions like responsibility and expectations, is a vain attempt to create certainty out of uncertainty. And contrary to what you may think, I have a great fondness for uncertainty. Rules cannot bring freedom, they only have the power to accuse. Whoa, Max suddenly realized what Sarah you had said. Are you telling me that responsibility and expectation are just another form of rules we are no longer under? Did I hear you right? Yup, Papa interjected again. Now we're in it, Sarah you. He is all yours. Mac ignored Papa, choosing instead to concentrate on Sarayu, which was no easy task. Sarayu smiled at Papa and then back at Mac. She began to speak slowly and deliberately. Mackenzie, I will take a verb over a noun anytime. She stopped and waited. Mac wasn't all at all sure about what he was supposed to understand by her cryptic remark and said the only thing that came to mind. Huh? She opened her hands to include Jesus and Papa. I am a verb. I am that I am. I will be who I will be. I am a verb. I am alive, dynamic, ever active, and moving. I am a being verb. Max still felt like he had a blank stare on his face. He understood the words she was saying, but it just wasn't connecting yet. And as my very essence is a verb, she continued, I am more attuned to verbs than nouns. Ooh, I got that. Ooh, that's good. Verbs such as confessing, repenting, living, loving, responding, growing, reaping, changing, sowing, running, dancing, singing, and on and on. Humans, on the other hand, have a knack for taking a verb that is alive and full of grace and turning it into a dead noun or principle that reeks of rules. Something growing and alive dies. Nouns exist because there is a created universe and physical reality. But if the universe is only a mass of nouns, it is dead. Unless I am, there are no verbs, and verbs are what makes the universe alive. Mm. And Mac was still struggling, although a glimmer of light seemed to begin to shine into his mind. And this means what exactly? Sorry, you seemed unperturbed by his lack of understanding. For something to move from death to life, you must introduce something living and moving into the mix. To move from something that is only a noun to something dynamic and unpredictable, to something living and present tense, is to move from law to grace. May I give you a couple examples? Please do, assented Mac. I'm all ears. Jesus chuckled and Mac scowled at him before turning back to Sarayu. The faintest shadow of a smile crossed her face as she resumed. Then let's use your two words, responsibility and expectation. Before your words became nouns, they were first my words, nouns with movement and experience buried inside of them. The ability to respond and expectancy. Got it. That's good. My words are alive and dynamic, full of life and possibility. Yours are dead, full of law and fear and judgment. That is why you won't find the word responsibility in scriptures. Oh boy, Matt grimaced, beginning to see where this was going. We sure seem to use it a lot. Religion must use law to empower itself and control the people who they need in order to survive. I give you an ability to respond, and your response is to be free to love and serve in every situation. And therefore, each moment is different and unique and wonderful. Because I am your ability to respond, I have to be present in you. If I simply gave you responsibility, I would not have to be with you at all. It would now be a task to perform, an obligation to be met, something to fail. Oh boy, Max said again without much enthusiasm. Let's use the example of friendship and how removing the element of life from a noun can drastically alter a relationship. Mac, if you and I are friends, there is an expectancy that exists within our friendship. When we see each other or are apart, there is an expectancy of being together, of laughing and talking. That expectancy has no concrete definition. It is alive and dynamic, and everything that emerges from our being together is a unique gift shared by no one else. But what happens if I change that expectancy to expectation, spoken or unspoken? Suddenly, law has entered into our relationship. You are now expected to perform in a way that meets my expectations. Our living friendships rapidly deteriorates into a dead thing with rules and requirements. It is no longer about you and me, but about what friends are supposed to do or the responsibilities of a good friend. Or, Mac noted, the responsibilities of a husband or father or employee or whatever. I get the picture. I would much rather live in expectancy, as I do, mused Sarah you. But, argued Mac, if you didn't have expectations and responsibilities, wouldn't everything just fall apart? Only if you are of the world, apart from me, and under the law. Responsibilities and expectations are the basis of guilt and shame and judgment, and they provide the essential framework that promotes performance as the basis for identity and value. Wow, 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 wow. Ooh, my mind is blowing as I'm reading this. You know well what it is like not to live up to someone's expectations. Mm, Boy, do I, Mac mumbled. It's not my idea of a good time, he paused briefly, a new thought flashing through his mind. Are you saying you have no expectations of me? Papa now spoke up. Honey, I've never placed an expectation on you or anyone else. The idea behind expectations requires that someone does not know the future or outcome and is trying to control behavior to get the desired result. Humans try to control behavior largely through expectations. I know you and everything about you. Why would I have an expectation other than what I already know? That would be foolish. And beyond that, because I have no expectations, you never disappoint me. Oh, that's good. Ooh, that's good. What? You've never been disappointed in me? Mac was trying hard to digest this. Never, Papa stated emphatically. What I do have is a constant and living expectancy in our relationship, and I give you an ability to respond to any situation or circumstance in which you find yourself. To the degree that you resort to expectations and responsibilities, to that degree you neither know me nor trust me. Come on, that was good. Ooh, I gotta say that again. Oh my God, that ooh, we y'all. I'm trying so hard to keep my place, but this is good. Okay, Papa said she never had any expectations of him. She says, what I do have is a constant and living expectancy in our relationship. And I give you an ability to respond to any situation and circumstance you find yourself in. To the degree that you resort to expectations and responsibilities, to that degree you neither know me nor trust me. My God. Mm, 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 mm. Sheesh, that is crazy good. Ooh, hoo, hoo. I just, oh my God, I just had to sit right there for a second, you all. Man. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I'm telling you, this is why I love, love, love journeying together because I'm getting like my mind is exploding right now. I'm telling you. Okay, so continue, continue. And interjected Jesus, to that degree, you will live in fear. Yes, yes, absolutely. But Mac wasn't convinced. But don't you want us to set priorities? God first, then whatever, followed by whatever. The trouble with living by priorities, Sarah, you spoke, is that it seems everything as a hierarchy. It sees everything as a hierarchy, a pyramid, or and you and I have already had that discussion. If you put God at the top, what does that really mean and how much is enough? How much time do you give me before you can go on about the rest of your day? The part that interests you or so much more. Papa again interrupted. You see, Mackenzie, I don't just want a piece of you and a piece of your life. Even if you were able, which you are not, to give me the biggest piece, that is not what I want. I want all of you and all of every part of you and your day. Jesus spoke again. Mac, I don't want to be first among a list of values. I want to be the center of everything. When I live in you, then together we can live through everything that happens to you. Rather than a pyramid, I want to be the center of a mobile where everything in your life, your friends, family, occupation, thoughts, activities is connected to me, but moves with the wind, in and out and back and forth in an incredible dance of being. Mm. And I, included Sarayu, I am the wind. She smiled hugely and bowed. There was silence while Mac collected himself. He had been gripping the edge of the table with both hands as if to hold on for something tangible in the face of such an onslaught of ideas and images. Well, enough of all of this, stated Papa, getting up from her chair. Time for some fun. You all go ahead while I put away the stuff that'll spoil. I'll take care of the dishes later. What about devotion? Asked Mac. Nothing is a ritual, Mac, said Papa, picking up a few platters of food. So tonight, we are doing something different. You are going to enjoy this. As Max stood up and turned to follow Jesus to the back door, he felt a hand on his shoulder and turned around. Sarah, you were standing close, looking at him intently. Mackenzie, if you would allow me, I would like to give you a gift for this evening. May I touch your eyes and heal them just for tonight? Mac was surprised. I see well enough, don't I? Actually, Sarah, you said apologetically, you see very little, even though for a human you see fairly well. But just for tonight, I would love you to see a bit of what we see. Then, by all means, Mac agreed. Please touch my eyes and more if you choose. As she reached her hands toward him, Mac closed his eyes and leaned forward. Her touch was like ice, unexpected and exhilarating. A delicious shiver went through him, and he reached up to hold her hands to his face. There was nothing there, so he slowly began to open his eyes. Mm. My goodness. Oh, that piece about, oof, responsibility and expectations. So often, you all, my goodness, And I've said this before in another panel. I do a weekly panel on TikTok with another platform. And we had a conversation where we talked about expectations, and I spoke to someone because they were stating about their relationship, and how she was disappointed in her relationship because the guy was not fulfilling his expectations and things like that, and and whatever. And so I asked her, um whose expectations were they? And she said, well, I expected him to know what a real man does, and that a man da 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 da. And I said, okay. I said, well, so you came in with expectations and rules that he was supposed to follow. I said, did you all have a conversation about these expectations? Are these things that you all mutually agreed on? Are these responsibilities that you gave him and all of this stuff? Was he aware that, you know? And so she was like, well, I mean, because that's a grown man. He's supposed to. Here's the thing. I told her, I said, that's where you went wrong. You place expectations on someone when you should not do that. If you're going to be in relationship, and this is so key, and this is prior to me even getting this depth of a knowledge right here, because I had no idea. This portion here was so good. I just had a knowing in me about removing expectations from people, because I myself had to have a heart to heart about, hurting my own feelings when I put expectations and expect certain responsibilities, people to fulfill certain responsibilities. But my thing is this: to whom are these expectations given to, and who created the gauge at which others are supposed to live up to? That is control. To expect someone to live up to your expectations is control. It is control. It is manipulation. It is getting what you want out of the situation from them, instead of simply accepting what is, what currently is, instead of allowing the being to be, to simply be. Now, here's the thing: if they display for you who they truly are, who they are, and how they are, whatever, and it doesn't work for you, then you can decide whether you want to stay there or not, or be in that dynamic or not. But to get into the dynamic and not take the moment to see who the person is already, you come in with expectations, with a blueprint for them. No. If you want something to be exactly what you want it to be, you might want to go over to Build-A-Bear and create the actual bear that you desire. You can put whatever stitching, stuffing, color, bow tie, whatever you want to do, build up whatever. But that's no such thing when you're dealing with human beings. Human beings are beings. However they are, that's what they are. Whatever they produce, however they show up, that's how they show up. If they show up in a way that does not, mesh well with what you want to involve yourself in, then okay. But you don't have to judge, you don't have to slander, you don't have to beat them down, you don't have to do any of that. You can simply just decide if this is something that you want to partake in. If not, then go on about your business. But to put your expectations on somebody else is selfish, and it's controlling, and it's manipulating, and it's not relationship. Because to be in relationship, I accept what is. I accept who you are as you are. And I'm not trying to change you. I'm not trying to change you, for me, because that's ultimately what that is. I accept who you are as you are. And I love you through all of it, as all of it. But that's no such thing when you're dealing with human beings. If they display for you who they truly are, who they are, and how they are, whatever, I accept who you are as you are. And I love you through all of it, in all of it, as all of it. That's relationship. If you so choose, like, and there's nothing that you can do to stop my true love. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna, fade my love out, or I'm not gonna give you a percentage of love if you don't do what I. No, that is control, and that is not love at all. Anyway, not at all. It's man, that's good. Ooh, that's good. We can really dive into that as a conversation in and of itself. Okay, that was chapter 14. Here we go. Chapter 15, A Festival of Friends. There's a quote here by Frederick Buechner, and it's an excerpt from Telling the Truth, and it states, "You can kiss your family and friends goodbye and put miles between you, but at the same time, you carry them with you in your heart, your mind, your stomach, because you do not just live in a world, but a world lives in you." That's good. Ooh, that's good. When Mac opened his eyes, he had to immediately shield them from a blinding light that overwhelmed him. Then he heard something. "You will find it very difficult to look at me directly," spoke the voice of Sarayu, "or at Papa. But as your mind becomes accustomed to the changes, it will be easier." He was standing right where he had closed his eyes, but the shack was gone, as well as the dock and shop. Instead, he was outside, perched on the top of a small hill under a brilliant but moonless night sky. He could see that the stars were in motion, not hurriedly, but smoothly and with precision, as if there were grand celestial conductors coordinating their movements. Occasionally, as if on cue, comets and meteor showers would tumble through the starry ranks, adding variations to the flowing dance. Then Mac saw some of the stars grow and change color as if they were turning nova or white dwarf. It was as if time itself had become dynamic and volatile, adding to the seeming chaotic but precisely managed heavenly display. He turned back to Sarayu, who still stood next to him. Although she was still difficult to look at directly, he could now make out symmetry and colors embedded within patterns, as if miniature diamonds, rubies, and sapphires of all colors had been sewn into a garment of light, which moved first in waves and then scattered as particulate. "It is all so incredibly beautiful," he whispered, surrounded as he was by such a holy and majestic sight. "Truly," came the sound of Sarayu from out of the light. "Now, Mackenzie, look around." He did and gasped. Even in the darkness of the night, everything had clarity and shone with halos of light in various hues and shades of color. The forest was itself afire with light and color, yet each tree was distinctly visible, each branch, each leaf. Birds and bats created a trail of colored fire as they flew or chased each other. He could even see that in the distance of an army of creation as was in attention, deer, bear, mountain sheep, and majestic elk near the edges of the forest, an otter and beaver in the lake, each shining in its own colors and blaze. Myriads of little creatures scampered and darted everywhere, each alive within its own glory. In a rush of peach and plum and currant flames, an osprey dove toward the surface of the lake, but pulled up at the last instant to skim across its surface, sparks from its wings falling like snow onto the waters as it passed. Behind it, a large clothed lake trout burst through the surface as if to taunt a passing hunter and then dropped back in the midst of a splash of color. He felt larger than life, as if he were able to be present wherever he looked. Two bear cubs playing near the feet of their mother caught his eye. Ochre, mint, and hazel tumbling as they rolled and laughed in their native tongue. From where he stood, Mac felt that he could reach out and touch them, and without thought stretched out his arms. He drew it back, startled, as he realized that he too was aflame, ablaze. He looked at his hands, wonderfully crafted and clearly visible inside the cascading colors of light that seemed to flow seemed to glove them. He examined the rest of his body and found that light and color robed him completely, a clothing of purity that allowed him both freedom and propriety. Mac realized also that he felt no pain, not even in his usually aching joints. In fact, he had never felt this well, this whole. His head was clear and he breathed deeply the scents and aromas of the night and the sleeping flowers in the garden, many of which had begun to awaken to his celebration. Delirious and delicious joy welled up inside of him, and he jumped, floating slowly up into the air, then turned gently to the ground. So similar, he thought, to dream flying. And then Max saw the lights, single moving points emerging from the forest, converging upon the meadow below where he and Sarayu stood. He could see them now high up on the surrounding mountains, appearing and disappearing as they made their way toward them, down unseen paths and trails. They broke into the meadow, an army of children. There were no candles. They themselves were lights. And within their own radiance, each was dressed in distinctive garbs that Mac imagined represented every tribe and tongue. Although he could only identify a few, it didn't matter. These were the children of the earth, Papa's children. They entered with quiet dignity and grace, faces full of contentment and peace. Young ones holding the hands of each other, each young, even younger ones. For a moment, Mac wondered if Missy might be there, and although he looked for a minute, he gave up. He settled within himself that if she were, and if she wanted to run to him, she would. The children had now formed a huge circle within the meadow, with a path left open from near where Max stood into the very center. Little bursts of fire and light, like a stadium of slow popping flash bulbs, igniting when the children would giggle and whisper. Even though Mac had no idea what was going on, they obviously did, and the anticipation was almost too much for them. Emerging into the clearing behind them and forming another full large circle of larger lights stood those whom Mac presumed were adults like himself, colorfully brilliant and yet subdued. Suddenly, Mac's attention was caught by an unusual motion. It appeared that one of the light beings in the outer circle was having some difficulty. Flashes and spears of violet and ivory were arched briefly into the night in their direction. As these retreated, they were replaced by orchid, gold, and flaming vermilion, burning and brilliant sprays of radiance that burst out again toward them, flaming against the immediate darkness, only to subside and return to their source. Sarayu chuckled. "What's going on?" Mac whispered. "There is a man here who is having some difficulty keeping in what he is feeling. Whoever was struggling could not contain himself and was agitating some of the others nearby." The ripple effect was clearly visible as the flashing light extended into the surrounding ring of children. Those closest to the instigator seemed to be responding as color and light flowed from them toward him. The combinations that emerged from each were unique and seemed to Mac to contain a distinctive response to the one causing the commotion. "I still don't understand," Mac whispered again. "Mackenzie, the pattern of color and light is unique to each person. No two are alike, and no pattern is ever the same twice. Here, we are able to see each other truly. And part of seeing means that individual personality and motion is visible in color and light." Wow, that is incredible, Mac exclaimed. "Then why are the children's colors mostly white? As you near them, you will see that they have many individual colors that have emerged into white, which contains all. As they mature and grow to become who they really are, the colors they exhibit will become more distinctive, and unique hues and shades will emerge." Incredible was all Mac could think to say, and he looked more intently. He now noticed that behind the circle of adults, others had emerged, spaced equally around the entire perimeter. They were taller flames, seeming to blow with the wind's currents, and were a similar sapphire and aqua blue with unique bits of color of other colors embedded in each one. Angels, Sarayu answered before Mack could ask. Servants and watchers. Incredible, Mack said a third time. There is more, Mackenzie, and this will help you understand the problem this particular one is having. She pointed in the direction of the ongoing commotion. Even to Mack, it was obvious that the man, whomever he was, continued to have difficulty. Sudden and abrupt spheres of light and color at times shot out even further towards them. We are not only able to see the uniqueness of one another in color and light, but we are able to respond through the same medium. But this response is very difficult to control, and it is usually not intended to be restrained as this one is attempting. It is most natural to let its expression just be. I get it. I don't understand, Mac hesitated. Are you saying that we can respond to one another in colors? Yes, Sarah, you nodded. Or at least that's what Mac thought she did. Each relationship between two persons is absolutely unique. That is why you cannot love two people the same. It simply is not possible. You love each person differently because of who they are and the uniqueness that they draw out of you. And the more you know another, the richer the colors of that relationship. Wow. Ooh, my goodness, man, this feels so good to read. Mac was listening but still watching the display before him. Sarah, you continued. Perhaps the best way you can understand is for me to give you a quick illustration. Suppose, Mac, that you are hanging out with a friend at your local coffee shop. You're focused on your companion, and if you had eyes to see, the two of you would be enveloped in an array of colors and light, which mark not only your uniqueness as individuals, but also the uniqueness of the relationship between you and the emotions you'd be experiencing in that moment. But Mac began to ask, only to be cut off. But suppose, Sarah, you went on, that another person whom you love enters the coffee shop. And although you are wrapped in the conversation with your first friend, you notice this other's entry. Again, if you had eyes to see the greater reality, here is what you would witness. As you continued your current conversation, a unique combination of color and light would leave you and wrap itself around the one who had just entered, representing you in another form of loving and greeting that one. Wow. And one more thing, Mackenzie, it is not only visible but sensual as well. You can feel, smell, and even taste that uniqueness. That's my oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, you all. What that just said was, oh man, that's clairvoyance, clairsentience. Oh my goodness. Okay. Ooh. Oh, this is so good. I love that, Mac exclaimed. But except for that one over there, he pointed in the direction of the agitated lights among the adults. How are they all so calm? I would think there would be a color everywhere. Don't they know each other? They know one another very well, most of them, but they are here for a celebration that is not about them, nor about their relationships with each other, at least not directly. Sarah, you explain. They are waiting. For what? Mac asked. You will see very soon, replied Sarah Yu, and it was obvious that she was not about to say any more in the matter. So then why? Mac's attention had returned to the troublemaker. Why is that one having so much difficulty? And why does he seem focused on us? Mackenzie, Sarah Yu said gently, he is not focused on us. He is focused on you. What? Mac was dumbfounded. The one having so much trouble containing himself, that one is your father. A wave of emotions, a mixture of angers and longings, washed over Mac, as if on cue, his father's colors burst from out across the meadow and enveloped him. He was lost in a wash of ruby and vermilion, magenta and violet, as the light and color whirled around and embraced him. And somehow, in the middle of the exploding storm, he found himself running across the meadow to find his father, running toward the source of the colors and emotion. He was a little boy wanting his daddy, and for the first time, he was not afraid. He was running, not caring for anything but the object of his heart, and he found him. His father was on his knees, awash in light, tears sparkling like waterfall of diamonds and jewels into the hands that covered his face. Daddy, yelled Mack, and threw himself onto the man who could not even look at his son. In the howl of wind and flame, Mack took his father's face in his two hands, forcing his dad to look him in the face so he could stammer the words he had always wanted to say. Daddy, I'm so sorry. Daddy, I love you. The light of his words seemed to blast darkness out of his father's colors, turning them blood red. They exchanged sobbing words of confession and forgiveness as a love greater than either one healed them. Mm. Finally, they were able to stand together, a father holding his son as he had never been able to before. It was then that Mac noticed the swell of a song that washed over them both. As it penetrated the holy place where he stood with his father, with arms around each other, they listened, unable to speak through the tears, to the song of reconciliation that lit the night sky. An arching fountain of brilliant color began among the children, especially those who had suffered the greatest, and then rippled as if passed from one to the next by the wind until the entire field was flooded with light and song. Max somehow knew that this was not a time for conversation and that his with his father was quickly passing. He sensed that by some mystery, this was as much for his father as it was for him. As for Mac, the new lightness he felt was euphoric. Kissing his father on the lips, he turned and made his way back to the small hill where Sarayu stood waiting for him. As he passed through the ranks of children, he could feel their touches and colors quickly embrace him and fall away. Somehow he was already known and loved there. Mm. When he reached Sarayu, she embraced him as well, and he let her just hold him as he continued to cry. When he had regained some semblance of coherence, he turned to look back at the meadow, the lake and night sky. A hush descended. The anticipation was palpable. Suddenly, to their right, from out of the darkness emerged Jesus, and pandemonium broke out. He was dressed in a simple, brilliant white garment and wore on his head a simple gold crown. And he was every inch the king of the universe. He walked the path that opened before him into the center of all creation. The man who is God and the God who is man. Light and color danced and wove a tapestry of love for him to step on. Some were crying out words of love, while others simply stood with hands lifted up. Many of those whose colors were the richest and deepest were lying flat on their faces. Everything that had a breath sang out a song of unending love and thankfulness. Tonight the universe was as it was intended. As Jesus reached the center, he paused to look around. His gaze stopped on Max standing on the small hill at the outer edge, and he heard Jesus whisper in his ear, Mac, I'm especially fond of you. That was all Mac could bear as he slumped to the ground, dissolving into a wash of joyful tears. He couldn't move, gripped as he was in Jesus' embrace of love and tenderness. He then heard Jesus say clearly and loudly, but oh so gently and inviting, come. And they did. The children first, and then the adults, in turn, and each in turn for as long as they needed, to laugh and talk and embrace and sing with Jesus. Time seemed to have completely stopped as the celestial dance and display continued, and each in turn then left until none remained except the burning blue sentinels and the animals. Even these Jesus walked among, calling each by name, until they and their young turned to make their way back to dens and nests and bedding pastures. Max stood motionless, trying to absorb this experience that was beyond his ability to capture. I had no idea, he whispered, shaking his head and gazing into the distance. Unbelievable. Sarah, you laughed a shower of colors. Just imagine, Mackenzie, if I had touched not only your eyes, but also your tongue and nose and ears. Finally, they were alone once more. The wild, haunting cry of a loon echoing across the lake seemed to signal the end of the celebration, and the sentinels vanished in unison. The only sounds remaining were a chorus of crickets and frogs resuming their own songs of worship from out of the water's edge and surrounding meadows. Without a word, the three turned and walked back toward the shack and had again become visible to Mac, like a curtain being drawn across his eyes. He was suddenly blind again, his vision returning to normal. He felt a loss and a longing, and even a little sad, until Jesus came alongside and took his hand, squeezing it to let Mac know that everything was as it should be. My goodness. Ooh, that was good. That was so good. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ooh, 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 ooh. You know what? I'm not going to lie. I absolutely am putting my request in to see that sight. Oh, man. He was able to reconcile with his father. Oh, that thing was good. That was so good. Mm. Sorry, you said, oh no, he's not focused on us. He focused on you. That's your father. Oh my goodness. And all of the emotions came flooding. But what he resorted to, and I noticed he resorted to that of a little boy. He took off running towards his father. My goodness. The man that you once hated to your core. The man that you once almost wanted to kill, tried to kill. The man that you had not seen since you were a little boy. Oh my goodness. And his father, of course, having already passed away, his father was now in spirit, but still feeling, and he now was able to allow himself to feel. He was back in spirit form. And so now the truth of his heart came forth. And he had to also say he apologized. And he sobbed and ooh. And those were emotions that Mac never saw his father display. Never. That was necessary for the both of them because Mac carried throughout his whole life that dissension, that hate, that rage, that anger. He carried throughout his whole life, all of that. And now he was able to be free. He was, ooh, my goodness, man. Ooh, that's a load lifted off of him. Hmm. I'm excited. That was the end of chapter 15. Chapter 16 and 17 are next, you all. Oh my goodness. You know what? We should be done with this book by this time next week. So next week will be the last reading of the Shack, I believe. I believe there's only 4 chapters left. Oh, I'm excited. Okay, so chapter 16 is entitled A Morning of Sorrows. And then I'm going to chapter 17. One second, let me get to it here. I'm scrolling through the ebook. Chapter 17 is Choices of the Heart. Ah, Choices of the Heart. Okay, here we go. We are coming to a close, but we're at chapter 16 and 17, and we will pick this up on Tuesday evening, you all, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay? 7 p.m. Central and 5 p.m. Pacific, okay? Alrighty, you all, listen. That's it for today. I hope you got a lot out of it. I loved it. If you need your free copy of the ebook, send me an email. Request it. Request it. I'm here. Send the email to info@biancamissbilly.com. Again, that is info@biancamissbilly.com. Those who are viewing via video, it's on the screen. For those on Clubhouse, you can tap my website above my head and it'll send you over directly over to where you can send me a direct message, okay? And send me the information and the email address that you would like your ebook to be sent to you. It is free of charge to you. It is you don't have to pay anything for it. It is our gift to you. We are a nonprofit organization, so yes, we do receive donations. However, donations are welcome; they are not required. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right. Um, Feel free to visit the website, you all. Again, for Clubhouse is right above my head. For those who are listening via the screen, then it's on my it's on the screen. If you're listening via video, it is on the screen. It is biancamissbilly.com. Okay. Go there, you all. Visit, take advantage of the opportunities there. I have my services that I provide, merchandise, books, courses, the whole 9 yards. You can keep abreast of the um, astrological transits. They are there on the main page as well, okay? And they are current. So, welcome to December. This is December 1st. And we have both 2 days, two things happening today. Actually, we're entering into a new phase celestially, but then today is the new moon in Sagittarius, which is bringing its own knowledge and wisdom. And I tell you exactly how you can tap into the energy that this new moon in Sagittarius will bring, okay? Understand. You may not understand what's happening. You may not understand the purpose behind certain creations, but understand that everything that was created with a purpose attached to it. Okay, there's a reason for each creation, as we've learned inside of this reading here, this book here. Every single thing that was created has a specific creation purpose. Okay, so knowing those things, there are people who know those things and know how you can glean from them, and I'm here to tell you how to do that. Okay, cosmically. All right. Alrighty, you all. Also, last thing, follow me on social media. You can follow me on all these platforms: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. All is Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. Okay. Alrighty, listen, you all. That is it for now. Again, on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be reading chapters 16 and 17 of the phenomenal book, The Shack. Okay. Um, I think that's it. I think that's all. All right, you all. I love you. I mean it. There's absolutely positively nothing you can do about it. Don't you even try it. We'll see you back here in 2 days, right here on Divine Femininity United. Peace.